The old pickup truck rolled down a lonely highway through the forests of Montana, but it wasn't the rusty vehicle that caught the attention of the passing bikers. It was the frightened face of a young girl pressed against the dusty back window, her trembling hands forming a desperate signal she had learned during a school safety lesson. Her eyes were filled with silent terror, pleading for someone, anyone, to notice before it was too late. The motorcycles thundered past for only a moment, but one rider caught the gesture in his mirror. In that single heartbeat, everything changed. Sometimes heroes don't wear uniforms or badges. Sometimes they wear worn leather jackets, carry scars from difficult lives, and refuse to ignore someone begging for help. Before we continue, if you believe kindness, courage, and second chances still exist in this world, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone you care about, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps bring more stories that remind us humanity is still alive. The girl's name was Grace, a quiet 11-year-old who lived with her grandmother in a small town outside Missoula, Montana. Her parents had died several years earlier in a tragic highway accident, leaving her grandmother, Margaret, to raise her with endless love despite limited means. Grace was known for helping neighbors, reading books under an old maple tree, and volunteering at the local church whenever she could. She had a gentle heart that saw goodness in everyone, making what happened to her all the more heartbreaking. Earlier that afternoon, Grace had been walking home after helping organize donations at the community center. She never made it home. A man pretending to need directions convinced her to come closer before forcing her into his truck. The roads became unfamiliar, and the fear settled into her chest like ice. She remembered every safety lesson her grandmother had taught her. Stay calm. Look for opportunities. Never stop hoping that someone will notice. Hours passed as the truck traveled farther into remote country roads. The driver believed nobody was watching, but Grace refused to surrender to despair. Then she heard the unmistakable rumble of motorcycles approaching from behind. Through the dusty rear window, she saw a group of bikers riding together beneath the bright afternoon sky. Her heart pounded wildly. She slowly raised both hands and formed the emergency signal she had once practiced at school. It was a simple gesture, but it carried the weight of her entire future. Leading the group was a broad-shouldered man named Nathan. Years earlier, he had lost his younger sister after she disappeared during a family vacation. Her case remained unsolved, leaving an emptiness that never healed. Since then, Nathan had devoted much of his life to helping missing children organizations and participating in community safety rides across the United States. When he glanced into his mirror and saw Grace's trembling hands making the signal, he instantly recognized it. Nathan motioned to the other riders without creating panic. There were 8 motorcycles in the group, each rider experienced enough to understand silent communication. Instead of confronting the truck recklessly, they spread out while keeping a safe distance. One rider immediately called 911, carefully describing the truck, its direction, and their exact location. Another activated a helmet camera to record everything unfolding. They knew that acting with courage also meant acting wisely. The truck suddenly turned onto an isolated gravel road winding through dense pine forests. Dust filled the air as the motorcycles followed from a distance. Every mile increased the danger, but none of the bikers considered turning back. They had families waiting for them at home, jobs to return to, and responsibilities that mattered, yet none of those things outweighed the desperate child depending on strangers to save her. Meanwhile, Grace noticed the motorcycles still behind them. Hope slowly replaced panic. She realized someone had understood her signal. Even though she remained trapped, she no longer felt completely alone. That tiny spark of hope gave her enough strength to remain calm instead of giving in to fear. Several sheriff's deputies coordinated with state police after receiving the emergency call. They quietly positioned themselves near intersections ahead while tracking the truck's movements through information provided by the bikers. Every update helped narrow the options until officers identified an abandoned hunting cabin where the suspect appeared to be heading. The truck finally stopped outside the weathered cabin surrounded by towering trees. Before the driver could force Grace inside, flashing lights burst through the forest. Sheriff's vehicles blocked the road while officers moved in from multiple directions. At the same time, Nathan and the other bikers positioned themselves nearby without interfering, ensuring there was no escape route. The driver froze, realizing his plan had completely unraveled. Within moments, deputies safely rescued Grace. Wrapped in a warm blanket, she was escorted away from danger as paramedics checked her for injuries. She had bruises, exhaustion, and overwhelming fear, but she was alive. As tears streamed down her face, she looked toward the group of bikers who had refused to ignore a silent plea for help. Many of the hardened riders quietly wiped away tears of their own. Grace was reunited with her grandmother later that evening. Margaret rushed across the sheriff's station parking lot and embraced her granddaughter with the desperate strength of someone who had nearly lost the last remaining piece of her family. Officers, paramedics, and even seasoned deputies struggled to hide their emotions. It was one of those rare moments reminding everyone why courage and compassion still mattered. The investigation later revealed that the suspect had committed similar crimes in multiple states. Because Grace had remained brave enough to signal for help, and because Nathan recognized that signal immediately, investigators were able to connect evidence that solved several long unsolved cases. Families who had spent years searching for answers finally received the truth they had been praying for. One courageous child and a handful of strangers had changed countless lives. News of the rescue spread throughout Montana and beyond. People often expected bikers to be intimidating because of their appearance, but the story reminded the country that appearances rarely reveal a person's heart. Nathan's motorcycle club never sought fame or recognition. They simply believed that if someone was in danger, you never look away. You act. Grace eventually returned to school, where she spoke about personal safety and the importance of learning emergency signals. Her courage inspired thousands of children across the United States to pay attention during safety lessons they once considered unimportant. Teachers, parents, and law enforcement agencies began sharing her story as proof that knowledge, courage, and ordinary people working together could save lives. Nathan visited Grace and Margaret several months later. The family invited the entire motorcycle club to a community picnic celebrating those who had helped during the rescue. Laughter replaced fear, and hope replaced painful memories. For Nathan, seeing Grace smile reminded him that although he could never save his own sister, he had helped save someone else's child. That realization brought a measure of peace he had not felt in decades. If this story has touched your heart so far, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who still believes compassion can change lives. Every interaction helps these powerful stories reach more people who need a reminder that hope is never truly lost. Special request: tell us in the comments where you're watching from and write "Hope Still Lives" if you believe one brave act can change someone's destiny. Grace never forgot the thunder of those motorcycles echoing behind the truck that terrifying afternoon. To many people, they were simply riders traveling across America's open highways. To her, they became the sound of hope arriving exactly when it was needed most. Her silent signal lasted only seconds, but it connected complete strangers through courage, compassion, and humanity. In a world where many people choose to keep driving and mind their own business, 8 bikers proved that noticing someone in need can save a life. Their decision to trust their instincts, act responsibly, and stand beside a frightened child became a reminder that heroes are often ordinary people who simply refuse to ignore another person's pain. Long after the headlines faded, Grace carried one lesson with her every single day. Even in life's darkest moments, hope can appear in the most unexpected form, and sometimes the people the world misunderstands become the very ones who restore its faith in goodness.